All right, fifth grade. Here we go. So we are working on this sunflower picture for Miss Jordan, and we had started a basic drawing of a sunflower. Mine's pretty light. We wanted to keep them pretty light. And then from there, we're going to go in, add a little bit more detail, okay? So she should have some of those pictures, or she should have some flowers in her room to look off of. And so I went in, I started looking really at the sunflower. I added in the grooves where the petals are. I started getting some of the textures. I didn't go in and get all the little seeds just yet. So from here, what we're going to do is we're going to use a technique called layering, all right? So find my drawing here. I started my layering with, looking at the sunflower. And what you want to do is you want to go with the lightest colors that you see, all right? So in my sunflower, there's going to be some yellows. That's pretty light color. And honestly, in this one here, I'm going to have quite a few colors, all right? So I've got my yellow. I've started putting down a light base of yellow. My green leaves, still going to have some yellow to them. Even in here where it's kind of got some oranges and some browns, still going to have some yellow underneath it. So a lot of this, if not all of it, is going to be yellow first. You want to put that on very, very lightly. So I didn't put a whole lot of pressure, and I went in. And the reason we layer is because we do not want to see that white of the paper come through on everything that we draw. So I want to cover up a lot of this with that light base coat. So now, what I want to start to do is I'm going to work with my petals, I think, first. And I have some dark areas in here. Some of this is going to remain yellowish. And again, one of the reasons why we try to go so light is so that we don't see some of those colors in the end. So I'm going to go in, and all of my colors that I'm going to put down, I am not pushing too tremendously hard here. All right. So I'm going to go in and start to layer over the top of my yellow with some oranges and some reds. And again, I'm not pushing too terribly hard. I just want to layer over the top. I can also return back to putting some of that yellow because that is going to start to mix. I wonder if you can see that already. It is starting to turn that into some orange already. All right. Now, I don't want to get too crazy with this. I don't want to go all the way to the top, but there are some lines and some grooves in here that I'm going to try to emphasize a little bit more. And definitely when there's some overlapping. All right. So I've got my oranges and some reds, and definitely I've pretty much got my 3 pencils in my hand here, and I just keep kind of rotating back and forth between these. And I'm just going in and just applying those colors. So there's a little bit of an overlap here, which means there's going to be a little bit of a shadow. Now, the reason I don't push super hard on this right in the beginning is because it will be tough to layer with a super thick color on here. All right, go back to my yellow. And so you really kind of want to, if you're not looking at a picture of one now, looking at the ones that are in Miss Jordan's room, just to kind of give you an idea of how those colors are going to go. Really close to the body here, I was calling it in class, that's going to be your darkest stuff. I can even go in with a little brown in here. Have a little bit. The darker I go, it's getting towards the end of that coloring in that area. And I don't necessarily want to go with black right away, even though it is kind of a darker color. I want to go with some of my lighter tones and work my way to dark. But if I had to, and I had some white, I could go over the top with a little bit of white, try to blend it out. And I could even use a little bit of black in some of these areas where there's a slight overlap. But again, I'm going to use the black to kind of make the color a little darker. So my reds and my browns will just be a darker version of that. I don't want to go too over the top with my black colored pencil here. Just kind of lightly putting it in to kind of add a little bit more value to what's going on in there. All right. So you can kind of see now when you're getting into the seed area in here. I've got my yellow, but I'm gonna go in and maybe I'll do a small section right here. I'm gonna go in with a light bit of orange. You know, you really gotta kind of look, because I've got some green in this space here where the seeds are at. So I'll just kind of do a little small section for you. And I'm keeping my lines going the same direction to keep it a little neater. I guess if I wanted to, I could kind of go in a rounded motion so that it goes with how the flower kind of moves around in there. And then I'm going to start going in with a little bit of red, except I'm going to get kind of spotty with this, and I'm going to try to show up those little dots of seeds and little flowers that are growing. And I'm going to even go in with a little bit of brown here and there, and that's going to start to show that texture. And again, I can always go back and put some more yellow in and a little bit more orange, and I can get some of that stuff to blend together, and then go back to my reds and my browns. All right, and I'm kind of just working my way to show those different seeds. So as I get a little bit closer to the center here, it gets a little bit lighter, so it's going to have a little bit more orange and yellows, not so heavy on the browns and reds, but I'm kind of just making little dashes. I think you can expressively show what you want to try to get those different seeds to show up. But I'm trying to get that texture as well, where my petals are kind of smooth. I've got a little bit of a fuzzy texture, so I really want to see the difference between the two. As you get into your leaves, I'm going to have 3-4 different colors in here as well. So I've got my yellow, I've got a nice yellow-green, and I've got even a dark green, and I'll probably throw in a little bit of black and white in there. So my yellow areas are going to be where that sun is kind of coming through, and that's going to help with me showing in some of this yellow-green down at the bottom here. And where I've got these little dots, those are darker shadows. But again, I'm not layering this super thick. What's nice is some of it I can see the pencil through, so that will help. But I really want some of the yellow to stay where it's at. And I can use this to mix. You can see just going over it, I'm starting to get that yellowish green feel to it. I highly recommend layering. If you go in and just put straight green, you're still going to see a little bit of the white of the paper. And you can see I kind of hold all the pencils in my hand and just kind of rotate in between them the best I can, which is kind of nice. I've got a few that are sitting on the side here that I'm going to use in a little bit. I've got my darker green. So try not to go super dark right away, and mix those colors in. It'll look a little bit more realistic. I think Miss Jordan will be very pleased with these when they're all done. And I know she's going to give you plenty of time to work on them. Even go in with a little bit of black, darken some of that green up there. Even putting a light tone of green in some of these shadow areas. I can always go over the top of that. It's really going to make that green stand out, that shadow stand out. And I'm just going to keep layering. I like the yellow showing through, letting the sun shine through. I've got a pretty dark green here, and I'm going over that yellow, and I'm not pushing too hard, so I can still let some of that show through. I can always hit it again with my yellow and blend them. Those lighter colors are good to help blend. And keeping my pencil lines kind of short and going the same direction. I'm not making these big long strokes all over the place. Just lightly kind of going over and getting them to blend. And I've got 1/2 of a leaf done here. Go in, and you can always revisit it and go back into it and make it a little bit darker. It's not showing up the greatest on the film here, but you can see I'm starting to get a little bit of texture. But putting those base coats down is really going to stop the white of the paper coming through. So take your time with that. Just colored pencil. If you don't have colored pencil, you could use crayon. You have to be real cautious and keep those lines nice and small. We don't want to make big long lines with our crayons. It'll be a little more difficult to blend, but we're going to take our time and see what we can come up with from there. Okay? So I'm going to work on mine. Good luck on yours. I can't wait to see them in the hall. And we'll see you guys next week.